Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, aging out of foster care. Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff with Hawaii News Now. Aging out of the foster care system in Hawaii can be a scary time for many youth who don't have family support to help them navigate the future. Although they may qualify for state benefits, many foster youth who've had unstable lives find themselves on their own at age 18. Without help, they are at high risk of becoming homeless and jobless. Tonight on Insights on PBS Hawaii, we'll hear from 4 former foster children about what helped them most as they faced adulthood. We always like to hear from viewers like you, so share with us your questions and comments by calling 973-1000 if you're on Oahu, or 800-238-4847 if you're on a neighbor island. You can also watch Insights streamed live at pbshawaii.org. Just check on the title of tonight's show, or find us on Twitter at PBS Hawaii. Now to our guests. Patricia Dew was one of the first young adults to participate in Hawaii's fledgling Imua Kako program. The program is voluntary and allows Hawaii foster youth to remain under state care from the age of 18 to 21. Currently, Ms. Dew is a student at Kauai Community College and works for Hale Opio Kauai, an organization which administers the program which extended her foster care. Kimo Carvalho entered Hawaii's foster care system twice, once when he was 5 years old and again at 13. After Mr. Carvalho aged out of the system at 21, his financial support from the state ended, but scholarships allowed him to attend Tulane University. Mr. Carvalho is the Community Relations Director for the Institute for Human Services. Jernani Utab Jr. was in Hawaii's foster care system for 4 years, including time in detention facilities and in group homes. Despite his early struggles, he was able to exit foster care successfully and earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Hawaii, West Oahu. Mr. Utab serves as the Oahu president of High Hopes Youth Leadership Board and currently works for Epic Ohana as a youth circle facilitator, helping young people in foster care create transition plans. And Francesca Weems spent more than half her life in foster care, living in more than 20 different homes on Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. When Ms. Weems aged out of Hawaii's foster care system, she was awarded a full scholarship to the University of California, Berkeley, where she earned a bachelor's and master's degree. Ms. Weems worked a stint as a TV sports reporter and currently is in public relations. And let me start with you, Francesca. Describe what it's like to have so much support up until 18 and then sort of face the scary prospect of being an adult.
It's tremendous for a lot of foster youth coming out of the system. I'm very blessed that my situation was not like a lot of foster kids that actually end up aging out of the system. I have a foster mother who's still very heavily involved with me today. I have her to support when I moved to California. Her sister and my grandpa and my cousins, my extended foster family was there to move me into the dorms. So I didn't have that gap. But what I really want to, hit home for people is a lot of people are under this misunderstanding that at 18, just because you're an adult, that you have it all together. We don't. And now you're talking about foster youth that come from tough backgrounds. If you're put in foster care, clearly that means that life wasn't grand at home, right? So not only are you walking out into this world with no one to call, can you imagine no support system? You're also talking about kids that come from broken situations. So it just adds layers of toughness to their life and their situation. And that's why so few succeed when they don't have that support.
Patricia Dew, tell me a little bit about your story. So what was it like for you? What were your situations when you entered your late teens and headed into the prospect of being a real adult?
So I was actually in a shelter before I aged out of foster care, and immediately on my 18th birthday, I was placed in a transitional home here on Oahu.
When you say shelter, what kind of shelter are you talking about? Like a homeless shelter, or
like an emergency foster care shelter.
What was that like?
It was hard at first because I had a normal set routine. So trying to adjust to those first few days because I needed to get everything in order with my social worker so that I could continue going to school, continue being involved in the activities that I was involved in, was the most troubling part. But as soon as that was all cleared, I got back to my normal routine, and it was pretty simple. Basic house living rules. I think the only weird thing was not being able to kind of go where you please, and you had to stay in someone's view at all time. But after that, like I said, I was placed in a transitional home here on Oahu through Halekipa, and it was great. I paid like $40 a month for rent. I could have stayed there for, I believe, 9 months.
Did you have a foster parent?
I did. I had many foster parents. My last set of foster parents were great. They were fantastic. Something happened during my 17th year of age, and I kind of, we'll just say, messed up, and then I got placed in a shelter.
Okay, speaking of folks that get a little messed up, not you personally, Kimo, but Kimo Caravo, asking you to wear two hats right now for a moment from IHS. You were telling me earlier you actually see these kids firsthand coming in off the system. What's that like? What are you seeing?
From my IHS hat, I actually did some research on our statistics, shelter statistics, and what we did find was about 10% of our shelter census, as they come in and do intakes, about 10% or about 60 to 70 individuals per year, they report having a history of foster care. And of course, these are just the people who are willingly saying that they are former foster youth. I'd imagine that statistic is much more. What was interesting though tonight, as I was talking to my boss, was she asked, well, what were their ages? And actually, when I kind of dug through it, majority of them were between the ages of 18 and 35 years old. So a lot of, to what you're stating earlier, a lot of former foster youth, they are at risk of homelessness. That is a reality.
So you literally see kids who are wandering in at, is it 18 or 19 when you actually age out?
So we do not, it's 18.
And then they come walking into the shelter saying, I got no place to live.
Yeah, we currently have, a family where we actually had his sister was in our single dorm, and we have currently a 18-year-old male with his girlfriend, and they just had a baby, so they're in our family dorm, and the sister actually moved into the family dorm with them so they could be together as a unit. But those are the kind of normal situations we see oftentimes.
We'll go on later on and we'll talk about some of the services that are needed along those lines. But Jernani Utah, what was your situation, and what is it that you want people to know about that transition period?
When I was in care, I was 17 years old, on the borderline of my 18th birthday, and it was a really nerve-wracking experience to be in a foster care system where you're sheltered, protected, and cared for, and then eventually having to grow up, be an adult immediately, and learn to take care of yourself at 18. Fortunately for me, as like Francesca had a solid relationship with her foster mother, I had the same as well. My foster mother looked at me like I was one of her kids, and she took care of me until then. I'm still living with her. It's been 9.5 years, and it's been a great relationship. But our job with High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, we want to see those successful outcomes with youth that are aging out of care so that they won't have to be afraid or won't have to become a negative statistic.
Let me ask Tricia Dew, how large a number are we seeing every year of kids moving into this transition period, and how many of them do get services?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Oh, I thought the DHS is, were we hearing something like 100 a year, or?
There's about between 90 and 100 young people from the state of Hawaii emancipate from the child welfare system.
And that means that at 18 they are leaving, or does that mean that they're staying with the system for another 3 years? Is that at 21 or is that at 18, I guess is what I'm asking.
So they officially emancipate from the system. They're no longer the state's responsibility at 18. And with this program called Imoa Kako, it's a voluntary foster care program, quote unquote, that provides medical, money, and support services to transitioning foster youth up until their 21st birthday. So they'll still be overseen, but not in the same scope as they were in foster care. They won't be told what to do. They won't be quote unquote protected. It's more like a partnership between the young person and the service providers working together to help that young person become successful adults. And if youth are interested in applying for Imoa Kako, they can check out imoa21.org.
Do a lot of people though not, I mean, it sounds like something that would be a no-brainer. Wouldn't you just want to do it? Is there some reason that some kids don't want to do it? Patricia?
Well, Imoa Kako, first of all, the name for it that we have is actually a Hawaii thing, and it means moving forward together. A lot of times when youth hear about the program, sometimes it's called voluntary foster care to the age of 21, and as soon as we hear foster care, because some of our experiences weren't so good, we opt out. We don't want to do it, even with all these really cool things that we're getting, like support from a case manager, medical, and even the financial help. It's just, we don't want to even be close to being back in that situation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Francesca Williams, so you've been involved in supporting youth. What do you see are the reasons that some young people don't want services after 18?
Like she said, maybe it's tied to the stigma of being associated still with foster care given their bad experience. It could also be that they are maybe not clear about the services. Before we came on camera, I was actually trying to brush up on some of my knowledge about what's offered in Hawaii, what's offered across the nation. And so for somebody who's coming from the system as a foster child that aged out, and me not surely knowing what's available, it's easy to see that, especially if the foster parents aren't up on their knowledge of the programs that are available afterwards, that these kids could fall through the cracks too if they're not aware. But I do think part of it is the stigma, not sure how they can transition. And then with the exception of like past 21, if they're not sure if there's that gap, they're not in school, so they can't be getting the higher ed payments. Then there's a gap where there's no support, right? And that's hopefully going to be changing, but I think it's a combination of that.
Timo, you were going to say something?
I agree. So the higher ed is actually a monthly allowance that we get and receive, and I actually didn't really know about it. I was assigned a guardian at Lightem who was actually a lawyer that worked under family court, and that was supposed to be my access point to understanding all the social services and being able to access, the education and the employment and everything else. But that person wasn't necessarily as involved, I suppose, as we're supposed to be. Of course, a lot has changed over a decade ago. But the higher ed for me was actually $529 per month allowance, and I believe I received just about $1,000 per year for extra expenses like clothing, my computer, school supplies. The $529 per month actually paid for my private education during high school, and that actually allowed me to then access higher education through college. But at that point of 18 years old, you go through this anxiety process of wondering, am I going to be able to sustain my life beyond this? I graduated from high school at 17 years old, so from May 2002 to December 2002, there was a 7-month period where I was freaking out on what was going to happen when I turned 18. So what I did was I immediately accessed my college health insurance plan. And thankfully to the Victoria Bradley Geist Foundation, they provided me with about 15% of my education, college education payments, figured out how to get into this financial system, wrote a bunch of letters, got more funding, and you just kind of figure it out. But it's definitely
That's for someone who's 17 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and actually my caseworker was incredible. She let me know about the Victoria Geist. She told me about the higher ed. My foster mother was also really knowledgeable about all the programs that existed. They told me which scholarships to apply to, because as a ward of the state, when you age out, you can apply as if you don't have parents. Even though I was lucky to have a foster mother as good as mine, I was able to apply for scholarships as if I had no parents, because you're a ward of the state. There's a lot of funding out there. It's just about pointing youth in the right direction.
Trunani and Patricia, it's interesting. It sounds like the real gap here is in information, as opposed to, like, all this money's been there, or all the support's been there, right? But people just don't know about it?
Yeah, sometimes it could be not knowing about it, and that's the hard part. So when we try to advertise Imu Wakako, we've done like media. We've done a video, we've done post-it cards, placards to inform everyone. And when we have these events for foster youth, like Ohana's Forever, which happens annually, Teen Day, which promotes youth attending court hearings twice a year, and the Real World event, we try our best to disseminate the information as best as we can. And also there's programs such as Youth Circles with Epic Ohana. You work with a Youth Circle facilitator, and they'll be able to introduce you and let you know what kind of resources are out there. For my foster mom, the reason why she was successful is because she had help from Youth Circles, and It Takes an Ohana from Family Programs Hawaii, and she knew all about these resources and helped me get connected with it.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Well, the other great thing also to getting out to the youth is that we, as being a part of the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, do presentations to the Department of Human Services, family courts, and as well for like medical, we do it to MedQuest and whatnot about this stuff, so that we're also raising the awareness to the resource caregivers, judges, social workers, GALs, but not only to them, but to the youth as well. So G was talking about more based on the youth, but we also do raise awareness to the professionals, I guess you could say.
Well, yeah, the other thing I was going to ask, and anyone can pitch in on this, is what's the responsibility of the foster parent? I mean, if you take on a foster child, as I understand, and I don't mean to sound crass about this, but you get paid, and are you expected to get training to how to help the kids make the transition? Is that an expectation, or is it just when they hit 18, they may just stop paying you and let them go? Is that too scary a question?
Well, my foster parents were really good. My last set of foster parents, they actually gave me an allowance, and they actually had me paying my own phone bill. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh my goodness, you paid your own phone bill," but it was more to raise awareness for myself. As you have bills every month, they get paid first, and then that money you have more is whatever you want to do. And I showed interest in cooking, so they allowed me to cook, and they taught me how to do laundry and how to clean properly. So I was very fortunate to have foster parents that gave me that independent living skills that I needed, so that when I did age out, if I didn't want to live with them, they knew I was going to be okay.
Actually, I want to touch on that. My like I said, going back to my foster mother, I wish that the system had more people like Jacqueline Woods. She's amazing, and it's because when she takes you in as a foster child, even though she didn't give birth to you, she takes you in just as she does her own. So there was no separation between me and her two biological twin daughters. And I think that my hope is when people decide to take on the role as a foster parent, that they decide to take on the role for life. So if you take a child in your home, they should still be able to call you when they leave. They should still be able to call if they need advice. They should be able to lean on you. You were in there, that you potentially, if they stayed for a while, help raise them for a period of time. And this gap at 18, like I said, the world rushes at you. You are not fully prepared, even though you're technically, quote unquote, an adult, to be able to make decisions. Maybe you don't know how to balance a checkbook. Maybe you still need somebody to give you that support in your ear. And I think the foster parents, I don't want to say owe it to them, but I think it's important. If you take them on, you should take them on as your child.
What you were going to say?
I think there's a very important piece of this puzzle, and I think I really want to acknowledge, Department of Health for advocating that, the child being placed in foster care always be placed, if at all possible, with a relative, a sibling, or some other family member, that they are as close to the family unit as possible. That is actually very important. And that was my foster situation. The first time was with my grandparents on my biological mother's side. The second time was with my grandparents on my biological father's side. But just being able to have that support there, it does give you some sense of relief and comfort knowing that there is a support system. Of course, they cannot relate to you on the level of trauma and grief that you're going through. But to also address your other question on that, I don't know what it's like today, but 10 years ago, my grandparents were not trained in how to provide that kind of relief and how to repair the grief and the loss of a family or the loss of a normal childhood. They didn't actually get that experience. So for me, not having the social services and care that I needed to actually develop, and them not getting that training was actually a big deal, and I hope today that that is in fact in place.
Let me talk to you guys about this question from a viewer. What mental health support is available after foster youth age out? Kind of going to what Kimo Cravalho was saying, is that it sounds like there is this inherent trauma that you folks have experienced. Let me start with you, Patricia. What kind of trauma was it that you had to overcome? And do you think that every foster child probably needs some kind of mental health support?
Yes, I definitely think so. I personally myself have received therapy, and it's not something everyone's open to, first of all, because I was 16 when I was going, and when I had to go to a doctor's appointment, my friends were asking what for, and I told them, I'm going to go see my therapist. It's kind of a shame. I'm not crazy. There's just some things that happened in my life that I need help coping with. But I definitely think it's a lot of youth need it, and it's that fear of being judged for getting it. But G can actually share with you a little bit more about this topic.
Go ahead.
Sure. So there is mental health services available out there for youth that are in care. When they age out and they turn 18, we have this campaign called Power Till 26, and more information can be found on powertill26.org. But that's the name of our campaign for increasing medical coverage for youth transitioning from care to age 26. And before that, it was harder. It was a much difficult process for youth to obtain medical insurance, and now we've made an easy process of doing so. And like Patricia has said, we have educated, advocated, and collaborated this movement, Power Till 26, to disseminate the information. And youth have medical coverage until their 26th birthday. So if they want to see, mental health, which is highly encouraged, because mental health is a big thing in care. Youth are between 2 and 6 times higher likely to get PTSD than returning war vets, and that's a really staggering statistics. And youth definitely need mental health services, especially when they age out of care, to cope with the unresolved trauma that they're quote unquote facing.
And so I also agree that, and I think that that's why it's important to support a child that has gone through the foster system through their 18 through 26 years of age. Everyone copes with something differently. Everyone needs a different timeline. I think a lot of people try to figure it out as early as they possibly can, but when you're dealing with a mental health crisis, it is definitely, you need time. You don't want to have to go through the anxiety of financial burdens and stress over, where are you going to live and having a home. You want to be able to just deal with this problem right away and know that support's in place.
Again, going back to your experience with the young people that come into the shelters, what kind of challenges do they have when they're walking in the door? I mean, these are ones that have not successfully transitioned if they're walking into a homeless shelter.
I didn't necessarily dig into all those individuals' history, but what is consistent amongst all homeless subpopulations, especially and including those that are walking through with a background of foster care, is that they are dealing with grief, trauma, and loss. And like a homeless person, foster youth, we have to address these fundamental issues and repair this trauma and acknowledge that it's a problem. And that really takes social services. That's something I didn't have 13, 14 years ago when I was going through the system. But had I had it then, I think a lot of things would have been much easier.
But you succeeded ultimately.
Ultimately. But I have to say, if I did not have the education and the employment in place, those support systems to actually navigate my way into the lifestyle I had, not having those social services probably would have put me more at risk of something like homelessness or the justice system.
Patricia, let me ask this question. This is one that comes from a viewer. It's not just a matter of extending foster care. What will the system do to ensure these foster kids get the tools they need to prepare for life outside the system? I mean, you're in college, all these 3 folks, they all graduated. How many, and I don't need a specific number, just anecdotally, do a lot of kids not have these tools to be able to just keep their education going, for example?
Yes.
And what do you do to help them?
Well, one of the examples, the High Hope Leadership Board on Kauai, and I believe also on Maui, we have hosted things like a college night where we get together and we invite former and current foster youth, adopted and legal guardianship from the ages of senior in high school till 26 to come join us, learn some information about the college that's on island, so for us, Kauai Community College, and learn about financial aid, some of the programs we have like Waialeale, so that we can help them get to a place like wanting to go to college and how to get that assistance and how to go about it properly. And we also kind of include in there some small like budgeting things. Like I like to tell them whenever I speak to them personally that when you receive financial aid, you should try and do as best as you can, because if not, you go below that GPA average they have, you're gonna have to pay them back. And sometimes when you speak more of that way instead of, oh, here's all this money that might come to you, and we don't make it aware to them that you have to be careful with it, they kind of just go money crazy. So when I say something like that, they look at me and they're like, whoa, like.
And it makes me think, Francesca, when even when I got my first part-time job, in high school, it seemed like a lot of money.
Right.
And is that something that does you get the sort of stars in your eyes? Wow, I'm an adult. They're giving me money. Is there a tendency to be a little irresponsible?
There can be, I also got the stipend for $529 a month, but in the long run, when you look at the money, $529 or whatever you're getting is not a lot. I was definitely blessed that I got a full academic ride, Bill and Melinda Gates Scholar. I applied to pretty much every scholarship that I could regarding race, gender, my circumstances. I applied the gamut. So for me, it was a motivation to make sure that I never got to the place where I came from, and so I knew education was the key. So I made sure that I could get as much funding as I could from various avenues, whether it be through the foster care system where I'm talking to my CPS worker, whether it's academic, whether it's athletic. I looked at every avenue possible to make sure that I would not fall back into the same cycle that I came from.
And, you know, what is interesting, and I'm just so proud to look across this table and know that we are not part of these statistics. But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. What is interesting about listening to this group is that, you know, when it comes to the foster system and these kids going through the system, every single one of them are some of the most resilient and self-determined people I have ever met. They actually are the Steve Jobs of the world, and in fact, I don't know if you know this, but he was a former foster child. And you know, all we need is access. But what is more interesting, listening to you, Francesca, is that it's this willingness to not be a statistic and this constant battle to avoid that situation, because we want to be normal. We want to surround ourselves around normal people that are not foster youth and not have to deal with that. I never accessed any foster care programs because I wanted to feel normal.
This is an important point to bring up because I think that, you know, the people will assume that you guys are not representative. And that may not be fair. It may be fair. I don't know. You know, we're surrounded by all you guys are successful. You're all articulate. You know, we hear these stories about these great resilient stories. But let me just start with you, Jernani. I mean, are you guys really representative of the majority of foster kids who come out of the system?
I would say the 6 years in the advocacy work I've been doing with the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, there's been more successful youth coming out of the system because of more support services and the more advocacy works that the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board has done. And it's totally different from when I aged out in 2008 to having not many support systems available compared to 2016.
I would like to jump on board. Unfortunately, I'm going to take the other side. I'm going to say no, we're absolutely not representative. 2 out of every 10 foster kids are successful. The rest end up homeless, dead, or in jail. That is not a statistic.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Dead or in jail.
Homeless, dead, or
Where's that from?
That is from a national statistic, and actually the Huffington Post also agrees with that statistic. I've seen it written on, what's it called? There's a bunch of, I'm drawing a blank on the study, Jim Casey. The Casey Family Foundation, right, they have an investigation they do every year, and that's the statistic they came out with.
Well, you know, that's a great point on which we're going to transition to the next half hour, because that opens up a very big subject. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Right now, I want to remind our audience that tonight we're discussing aging out of the foster care system. We'd like to hear from you, so please call, email, or tweet your questions and comments. Call 973-1000 or 800-238-4847 if you're calling from a neighbor island. Now, we just heard Francesca say that 8 out of 10 are not particularly successful. Do you guys, is that what you see here? That's a national statistic. Let's talk a little about Hawaii. You know, you folks, is your experience that, you know, 4 out of 5 of the kids are not doing so well as young adults?
Unfortunately, that is the case. You know, there's youth that are doing well. They got the support services, the social capital network, which comprises of friends, family, peers, and community. And then you have youth who don't have that much of strong of a social capital support system. And youth that don't have that kind of positive reinforcements, that love and that people to support them, they're gonna have, you know, poor statistics. They're gonna end up homeless, incarcerated, reliant on public services, be in the criminal justice system. So, you know, we're doing a job of advocating to make sure that youth statistics have go down throughout the years.
Patricia, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I would agree. I don't think that we represent technically the foster youth today, but I think we are a representation of what the foster youth could be, where they can get. That's what I would say.
Do you think that, from what you've seen of the people that you know, do you think that everybody can be much more successful?
Yes.
And what's the key thing that they need? Is it one thing, or is it this whole rainbow of stuff?
It's a whole rainbow of stuff. It's everyone getting together and making sure everyone knows the same information, being knowledgeable about it, having access to it. I think it's not only the Department of Human Services, the social workers, the GALs, the judges, and it's not their responsibility, just their own responsibility to make sure that the youth become successful. But I think it's also the youth, because if the youth doesn't voice what they want to do and the help they need, then it's possible that they could be directed towards the wrong path.
You know, Kimo Carvalho, again, you've seen this from both sides. What is your thought about, it sounds like people might think we're spending a lot of money on this and not getting very good outcomes if 8 out of 10 are not being successful. But is this an underfunding issue, do you think, or is it just people not paying attention? What's the issue that would create that level of lack of success?
I look around this table and I think we have described the support services and what it actually takes to become successful. It is the support services. It's not looking at a timeline and a cap on the timeline to move out of the system. It's allowing more flexibility. It's providing with that access to education and resources and supporting that along the way. People will get there. Every child deserves the basic human right to have a normal and decent childhood and to feel loved and supported. And we just need to figure out how to do that for every foster child out there. And I think as long as we handhold them through this process, it is possible. And while the statistics are not as good as we hope, it is getting better. And I think, that's why we're currently at the Ledge supporting this bill to, let the cap go up to 26 years old to provide more financial support. But I want to stress out that this is an investment for our state. If you invest in us, as I said, we are some of the most resilient and self-determined people. We will get there. But make this a good investment and invest in us, because we will get there. We will not be a statistic. And in the end, you will be saving taxpayers a lot more money not dealing with the criminal justice system, not dealing with homeless services and whatnot.
And actually, I want to piggyback off of that, because it's almost like if you don't support it now, you will be having to support it down the line, like you said, with incarceration rates or homelessness or other programs that after they age out not successfully that you'll have to pay for. 25,000 foster youth across the country age out every year. A Huffington Post-backed study showed that it costs the state about it costs the nation about $300,000 to support these 25,000 kids that come out. So in the end, it ends up being something like a $4 to $8 million bill. So, like I said, if you don't support them now, it's going to end up being a bill down the line.
I'm wondering, though, also, is the problem earlier in life, not just the transition period, but the actual foster care system? A caller asked, do we need more foster parents, for example? And another one is just a little harshly worded, but what the heck? What happens to those foster children who have lousy foster parents, who don't tell their foster children about these programs? Jernani, are there still systemic problems in the foster care system that are producing kids that are going to have a really, really hard time on transition? Or is that just the nature of the situation? These are kids that have come out of very difficult pasts.
One of the challenges of being in foster care, youth not only move through a lot of homes, but they move through a lot of schools. And when their education is not stable starting from high school, then they won't have a desire to pursue higher education, which translates to they don't want to go to college, or in turn, they won't have as much a successful life after they transition out of foster care. So if we could have them be placed in a stable education environment, so if they move from foster homes, they want to make sure that we keep them in the same school district so that they can attend school and be stable, and be with their peers, make that social capital network, make friends, be connected, and have that support system. Because if we're moving youth all around the place, eventually they're not going to take education seriously, and which in turn they want to just not deal with the system anymore.
Can I circle back to the the comment about the parents as well? So,
Sure.
We have to understand that Hawaii is struggling right now. It is hard for parents to actually. I mean, they're going through a lot of stress dealing with finances, dealing with any parent, right? And oftentimes what a child wants is that just support to do your homework with them. And whether it's a foster parent or a normal parent, children just need that support. But we're going through a lot of crisis right now with families that are on low wages. They're really struggling, and this is a reality. So we need to look at the entire system. It's not just the foster system. It's not just Department of Health. It's a lot of different systems here that we're looking at. So to answer this and prevent these consequences, we need to look at this as a whole problem.
But I do find it interesting what Jernani said is that, because I've never heard of stable school environment as being one of the big factors in placing. It's usually safety and trying to get together with relatives. Is that right?
Yes.
And so what do you think is the biggest thing that should happen in the foster care system, not just the aging out system? What would you suggest?
Well, I agree with G, because I was in 5 schools throughout my foster care time, and I've seen a lot of foster brothers and sisters come and go, and I've also seen them fail in especially school. Because if you think about it, a lot of the times we see our friends in high school and people telling us, school's the way to go. You don't want to go out of high school and get a job. You want to get that diploma because that'll get you an even better job. And when you're moving around so much and you're not keeping up with that work, or you're not understanding anything because you're switching from teacher to teacher to teacher, and you start failing, you're gonna feel like you're gonna fail in college, so you're not gonna even want to try.
Francesca, what about you? You I think in our introduction we said you were in 20 different homes. How many different schools did you end up going to?
So my situation, again, is very unique in the fact that I was in foster care on this island, Maui, and the Big Island. The Big Island was a permanent placement. So I was in foster care on this island in about 14 different homes for short stints. 2 weeks here, they put me back with my foster mother, or my biological mother. 2 weeks there, 2 weeks here, a day here, because something would happen, the state would get involved. But permanent homes, it was 6. And for elementary school, I only went to 2 different elementary schools, and then the rest was stable. So Child and Family Service made sure that they placed me with foster parents, and my foster mother, Jacqueline, took me on knowing that I would stay in the same district. That's important, that you keep your friendships, that you keep that sense of normalcy, which Kimo talked about. All we want to do is feel like we're normal. We don't want to be reminded that we're foster kids, that we're different, that there's something wrong, that we moved from all these different homes. I've lived in so many different homes growing up homeless, actually not having home, and then with my biological mother in a bunch of different settings. So to be in a stable place, at least I could have my school that was consistent.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And Jernani, let me ask again, how much do you think that would be a change to the system if they said, okay, we want to make sure these kids, would they even be able to do that, do you think?
Yes, when I was in care, I was in a group home in Kulihi, Halikipa Boys Shelter, and they were moving me to a foster home in Pearl City. So I was attending Farrington High School at that time, and moving to Pearl City meant that I had to go to Pearl City High School. And I've grown up in Kulihi all my life, and Kulihi is socio-economically, it's much more different than Pearl City. So that means I'd have to not only move schools, but move to a different community. And thankfully, my guardian at Lightum, listened to me when I reached out to him and said that I wanted to remain in Farrington until I graduated, and that was the case. So I've been through a handful of placements and only attended 2 high schools, which in turn helped me to motivate me to pursue higher education. And if the state, can keep kids in the same school or at least in the same district when they're moving, then it'll encourage them to go out and pursue a higher education and do well.
Patricia, you mentioned going to so many schools. When did the light bulb finally go off for you that you really needed to get an education?
Maybe my junior, senior year, because all my, I was kind of just following the trend. All my friends were talking about, oh, I got accepted into this college, or I'm looking into this college. And so college wasn't really an ideal for me. It was kind of just, oh, my friends are doing it, so I want to as well.
At least you had a good peer group that were going to college. I mean,
Yeah, I ended up, I'm a mother now. I'm a mother to a 2-year-old little girl. And I decided to try out college on Kauai Community College. And when I had her, it kind of hit me like, hello, you need to do something with your life because I need to raise her in the best way possible. I don't want her to have to go through what I went through. So high school was kind of, I'm going to follow the trend. Once I took that first semester and had my daughter, it was, yeah, higher education is the way to go.
Kimo Carvalho, when you get young people who come in with educational deficiency, mental health, but they're out of the system, right? Can they get back in? Or pretty much they're now adults and you have to deal with them as adults as opposed to being young people who need particular kinds of care? I mean, is it out there, stuff for them?
For IHS, we do not take unaccompanied youth. We do take youth with families, and so, but in terms of the services, yes, they are there. Today is a much different day from when I was a foster child. So, but you know, at IHS for children, you know, these homeless children are actually going through very much similar things than what foster children are going through. And again, they just need, you know, support. We have a children's support services at IHS that we help them through their academics. We make sure that the parents are there to support them through that. We make sure that they are going to area schools. We want to maintain as much consistency and normalcy as we can with our children. For, you know, the adults, it really is digging into all the layers of their grief and their trauma so that we can really move them out of homelessness. But yes, the services, they are there. And what was interesting earlier, I think you mentioned, is it just is it an information barrier? I actually think it is. I now really think about this, and you know, I was never part of any youth groups or anything like that, and I probably never would have joined one. But I never understood any of this. I just caught up with the whole system an hour ago.
You know, that's what I'm saying. You guys are the experts. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so here's an interesting call. I'm a caseworker in the Big Island. I want to commend these kids. I guess they include you guys. They are doing a great job. My comment is we do not have enough foster caregivers. We desperately need more. Everybody gets,
Yes.
that's a big
Absolutely.
yes. Okay. And another person asks, you know, so what kind of support from the community is most helpful at this stage for these aging out youth? What's the most, is there one thing, or is it just so complicated that it has to be individualized?
You know, one of the great things that I can add for youth out there who help them in the community is Yes Hawaii. Yes Hawaii is a program through EPIC.
Family Programs Hawaii.
Family Programs Hawaii. So YES stands for Youth Empowerment and Success. We have monthly get-togethers, and for Kauai, we've done things like horseback riding, zip lining, and the great thing about it is we get together with the foster youth community, and we get to kind of be in a group where we're not alone, like we're aware there are other people out there, and we build that social capital. We have to make those friends in those different areas. I mean, it's only once a month, but a lot of the youth come repeatedly and they enjoy themselves so much. So that's one of the cool things out there in the community today.
Let me ask, here's another question from the same caller. How can the public get involved? I think this is something that people say this is a government thing,
Right.
but are there ways,
Yeah,
Francesca?
They can volunteer, they can become foster parents. And I guess my thing is, not everybody is equipped or wants to be a foster parent, and that's completely okay. You can donate your time, you can donate your money, you can donate any resources you may have. So if you are a banker and you're good with finances, how about you help 18-year-olds that age out of the system, or even kids in the foster care system, learn how to balance a checkbook and save money. There's always something for people to be able to do. So that's my suggestion. If you're not equipped to be a foster parent, I completely understand. But there are ways you can get involved. You can, like I said, you can volunteer, you can help out, you can use your knowledge and craft to help these kids.
Well, you know, but the same information gap exists there, is that you might want to help, but you might have no idea. Is there a one-stop shop where someone who wants to help can contact? Is there a place where, I mean, we've mentioned at least a half a dozen different programs in this program. I'm a little lost myself. Is there one place someone can go, one website someone can go where everything's in one place?
I wouldn't necessarily know of one. The Google of resources for foster youth. But one particular website that sticks with me is called Family Programs Hawaii, and they have a lot of great activities, and that's what Yes Hawaii is a part of. And Family Programs Hawaii has a lot of great activities, events. They recently had their Christmas party, the annual Christmas party in the Blaisdell Center, where they put on a party for foster youth and families all across the island to get together and have lunch and have Christmas presents. So they can check out Family Programs .org to look for more information on how to volunteer, such as donating your time, money, resources, or maybe even becoming a foster parent.
Francesca, are you going to be a foster parent one day?
I don't know about that. I've actually thought about that a lot, actually, and I'm not sure if foster parenting is in my future, but what I do know is this is what I have a passion for. And so that's why I've really taken on this public speaker role, this foster care youth advocate role of going out and educating people and speaking to people and using every platform that I've been given to talk about the issues of foster care. And actually, it wasn't until I was in college that I openly talked about my foster care experience because I didn't want to be labeled. Some of my high school friends didn't even know I was in foster care. My foster mother happens to be African American, so it was seamless for them. They're like, oh, black lady, black child, boom, bam, bang. That must be her baby. I am not her baby. She did not birth me. And so for me, it was nice not to have to answer those questions. But when I got to college and after being educated and being a Bill and Melinda Gates scholar, and they really push you to be that advocate, I knew that it was my calling, that I needed to talk about my story. I needed to share with others that I came from nothing. I came from homelessness. I came from foster care. I've been in over 20 homes. I've been through this, this, and this, and I still came out and went to UC Berkeley, and you can too. They need to see more people like this panel, and that's why I'm so excited that we're out here, we're speaking, we're sharing this knowledge. So hopefully that 2 out of 10 can become 8 out of 10.
How about 10 out of 10?
How about 10 out of 10?
Let me get back to a couple of questions about barriers here, and I think that the two of you might be the best to deal with this. One is, who is responsible for telling the foster children about the available program? Is there a responsible person? Is it the social worker? Is it the foster parent? I mean, shouldn't someone be designated as responsible and getting trained in these things? Giordani, what do you think?
When youth are in care, it is not primarily one person's responsibility. The team of service providers and the foster parents and people in the community that work with the young person, they must all collaborate together and let each other know what kind of services are out there for this youth. Hey, I know this little scholarship for this youth or this little enhancement fund for this youth who wants to play football. Here's some little extra money for him. Or, hey, there's a youth circle program for this youth that can know about resources to get into college. So if service providers and foster parents get together and collaborate and keep in touch with each other and let them know, hey, this is what's available for this youth, then the youth will know what's out there for them.
And let me, Patricia, do on this question, how strict are the rules surrounding these programs? Is it difficult to be eligible? It doesn't sound like it is, but it sounds like you could also get kicked out.
So for Imul you can, because it's voluntary foster care, you can actually go in and out. And I remember when I went to an informative thing about that, it was like, you can go in and out as much as you want. It'd be nice if you don't, because then that's more paperwork. But for that, you have to be, there is requirements such as aged out at 18 or adopted or legal guardianship at 16. I think for the adopted and the legal guardianship, though, it might be only financial support. But for Imul my case, because I was the first one enrolled on Kauai, I was 19 at the time, and I went to school. And for Imul you could either be going to school full or part-time, working or volunteering, I think 80 hours a month, or be qualified as medically disabled. So I would say the hard part is aging out. Because, I mean, as much as you don't want to say, yeah, I aged out a foster kid, sometimes it's honestly the best way to get access to those resources that might help you in the long run.
Another question from a viewer, why do the guests feel that they've been successful? It is by virtue of their foster parents, or they were just naturally motivated? Where do you think they would be if they didn't have the right support? Keelan, let me start with you on that.
I think it was a mix of everything. I stress that every person going through this situation needs an individualized service plan, similar to homelessness, similar to the criminal justice system, similar to the foster care system. Everyone has a individualized service plan, whether it's a little bit more support on the family end, a little bit more support on the individual's end. We need to scale it. And the main thing, though, is accessing the system. So when you have the Imuakakos or the Epic Ohanas of the world, these were resources that I didn't know existed 10 to 15 years ago. And I'm so proud that these resources do exist today because it allows the community to access these resources. And from there, they work with providers like myself. We had Epic Ohana, IHS, CPS, and Family Court all at one table recently last year with the Hawaii News Now segment we did, just to reconnect a father with his two children. And, that's what it takes. But as long as you access the continuum, you'll get it.
A couple of questions here going back. A lot of people were provoked to call after our discussion about moving around from school to school, and it brings up the issue of just plain old stability, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, none of you were ultimately adopted, right, by foster parents, right? Even Francesca, even though you had that solid thing there. This question comes about, are parents applying for foster care just because they want to earn money? I don't know that that's a completely fair question, but I think that are the incentives in the system towards adoption, which would be a very stable environment, versus, I know, Francesca, tell me how you folks balance that in your family.
So my foster mother actually wanted to adopt me, but I thought it was a better financial situation for me to leave the foster care system aging out. So that way when I applied for scholarships, I was awarded the state. Because for some reason, when you're dealing...
So let me just get this straight. So strategically, there was more financial aid available if she did not adopt you.
Which that needs to change. And that needs to change with scholarships, because the moment they see that, oh, you're adopted or you have a mom, they don't even hear the rest. Like, I got adopted like last year, I'm 17, now I'm 18. So they just see you're stable, you have parents, and then they move on to the next one, which that needs to change. And the financial structure with that also needs to change. So for me, it was strategic. I told my foster mom, I love you. Having this piece of paper isn't gonna change anything. I know you're gonna support me either way. So for me, the financial aid that I would have gotten was much more important than having that title. And she can adopt me today if she wants. There's no timeline. Somebody that was 21 the other day in Pennsylvania got adopted because she wanted to have a family. So for various reasons, people do it, but for me, I have my family, so I didn't need that piece of paper.
Jernani, I see you guys nodding vigorously to that question. Is that really an issue, that the incentives aren't really set towards adoption in the system, or?
Definitely, yeah. And being a youth circle facilitator, I have cases where actually foster parents will wait until the youth is older than 16 in order to take legal guardianship or adoption, because they'll have equally the same opportunities as a youth that age out of the child welfare system. And that's the unfortunate case. And I agree with Francesca, that definitely needs to change, because if that doesn't change, then adoption and legal guardianship, which is the ultimate permanency goal that we're trying to achieve, that's not gonna be a high goal for a lot of folks. So, if we have the playing field even for a lot of youth who age out. So if you age out of the child welfare system, the playing field needs to be evened out for those that were legal guardianship or adopted at a much earlier age.
Interesting. And then another question, Linda from IAEA asks, my kids are all grown and I have thought about becoming a foster parent, but is help available so that I can be successful at it? Patricia, do you know about that? How much training do the foster parents get?
There are trainings that the foster parents have to go to. I've recently, now that I'm 21, okay. I was about to say 18. Oh my goodness, sorry. I'm 21.
I wish we could all say 18. Yeah.
My foster parents have talked to me and I've asked them, so what happens at your guys' trainings? Because I never knew. I knew that there was trainings, and I know someone comes into the home, makes sure it's secure, there's no knives out in the open, there's a smoke alarm, But I think one of the things that I know myself personally, once I've been involved with the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, I thought the coolest thing that I think the Big Island has started is having former foster youth to be a part of that training. Because I feel like if you had a former foster youth train with a foster parent, especially a new foster parent, you can kind of get that firsthand knowledge because we've been through it. So if there was a situation that you had a question about and we're there, we can tell you, especially if we've gone through that situation, you want to know exactly what's the best way to go about handling it.
And I imagine even on an ongoing basis, it'd be good to have a place you could turn with kids who are like your kids that could help you cope.
Yeah.
But there are more services allocated to the private sector versus the public. So Child and Family Services, Catholic Charities, there are more services for foster parents through private sectors than there are through CPS and others, because they're able to allocate and ask for public funding to help them. And there's a lot more therapeutic services. So my foster mother had an assistant, somebody who checked in with her all the time. She was able to get therapeutic help if she needed it. I was able to go to a respite house when she was burnt out. Not all foster parents get that type of support, and it's important.
Time for just one more question now. What is the legislation? We mentioned very briefly, Kimo Carvalho, tell me about this. What is the legislation that you'd like people to encourage this year? Is it something pending?
There currently is a bill pending that allows funding resources to support former foster children up through the age of 25, so up to 26 years old. $529 that Francesca and I got, I think it's now in the 600s, which is great.
670.
There you go.
We're
Moving up.
Well, great.
pushing that
There's legislation that would extend it to 26. Okay, thank you all very much. We've run out of time. You guys did a great job. It's been a pleasure and an inspiration to be talking to all of you. And so next week on Insights on PBS Hawaii, another inspiring program. We're going to be airing at 8:30 p.m. following the broadcast premiere of the Maui independent film Haleakala, A Trek for Dignity. That film will begin at 8 o'clock. We'll talk with hikers who suffer from mental illness and who found the outdoor challenge to be empowering and a break from the burden of mental illness. We'll examine factors that contribute to mental health problems and resources available to promote mental wellness. That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. Ahui ho.